there's a lot of value in putting a sprint in place, right? It's kind of like the moonshot back in the 60s, right? Like, so this is what we're focusing on right now. And I agree with zero emissions. I think that is key. But then after that, we're going to have to work on carbon capture, right? Because it's not going anywhere. The carbon dioxide is going to be, I think it's like 100 years that before it disintegrates in the atmosphere. And then if you have too much carbon capture research happening now, people who are emitting carbon can usurp that and use it to their advantage. So I agree with the zero emissions start, but then we also have to look at the long term, right? So we need all the technologies.
Were there any technologies that came up that maybe were surprising to you or would be surprising to others? Things that might be more near term than folks realize, or critical ways that nanoscience and nanotechnology can make an existing technology better?
So yes, there was something that was surprising to me, and it was Windows. Windows on two different levels. And I really didn't even think of it as a nanoscience component, but keeping heat in is one thing that they can do to save.
Yeah, and I think that's a great example of something that came from some very basic science investments early on, several decades of real basic work that was happening in academia and national labs that got spun out and turned into some things that folks are benefiting now in their cars and their office buildings and in 787s.
The topic of dye-sensitized solar cells has, really made incredible progress in the past couple of decades. They're currently at efficiencies that I never imagined they'd actually be at. And yet there's still problems. There's still sort of basic problems that need to be solved before they're practical. So it's a sort of an example of really great ideas that probably will contribute, but there's one of the big problems is a longevity problem. So they tend to disintegrate or degrade, I should say, more rapidly than makes sense for wide scale installation at the moment. But it is a fact that buildings are a big emitter.
Let's try a little experiment here. Since we're all going to try to demystify and show how nanotechnology is actually here, think about something in your personal life, maybe something that is at home or in your office that you appreciate and that is nanotechnology.
I'm cheating because I have carbon nanotube thermal interfaces all around me. I'll engage to expand or extrapolate. Like even this hat that I wear is enabled by nanotechnology. It's a brand around the company. And I think that's important because I do think that the product is not just the thing physically. It has a halo of brand and like aura around it too. That's important.
Where do your interfaces go? Where are they seeing? Where are they being applied?
All of these images you see of Ukraine and the Russian front, the satellites that make those images have our product in it.
Nice.
And like if you listen to Sirius XM satellite, the interfaces in Sirius XM powered by the product as well.
Wow. That's fantastic.
A couple examples, but yeah, it's everywhere around me. I literally, I'm on vacation and in my suitcase, I have some nanotubes.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
I think the technology that I would have to point to is my smartwatch right here with all its nano semiconductor and microelectronics within it. It's really pretty, and that's what I like about it, but it also tracks a lot of things. But I mean, everything that we work with, our computers, wouldn't be able to live my normal life, definitely, without nanotechnology.
I think that was also one of Cynthia Friend's points in her keynote is that people forget, really just a few years ago, we didn't have phones in our pocket. We didn't have computers. All of that is nanotechnology at work.
Yeah, the transistors are like 6 nanometers now in size. Or I think they're pushing down to 4 and even 3, right? In the Apple phones, which is amazing. I'm going to point to a very low-tech solution. The tires on our cars are stronger because they have carbon black in them, right? It's actually a nano composite that gives them the strength that they have.
I'll add to your composite example because, I mean, today there's carbon nanotubes in many batteries already as fillers and additives that allow it to get like a 5 to 6% enhancement in electrical conduction. That's a scaled industry that exists, making powders and nanotubes and mixing them into things. But to the point about people forgetting things, I think people always forget things if you let them forget. And we have to figure out a way to make that valuable kind of in our policy as well. I mentioned PBS, but I mean, I think that in general, there are opportunities that we have yet to tap into to figure out how to study, how to not have people forget.
One nanotechnology I'm especially grateful for is my COVID-19 vaccine, which is not only based on nanotechnology, but the massive facilities, expertise, personnel required to do the science to get those vaccines is all part of a huge investment in nanoscience specifically, and also other sciences, a lot of other sciences. But there's a lot of nano involved just in that.
And the tests that we have in our home, they have gold nanoparticles in them. That's how you get the visual, right? You can aggregate them, that's how you get the visual positive or negative result.
Rose color.
Rose color.
I was going to make that very point, Jeff. And of course, the COVID vaccine is a little bit apart from climate change. But if you think about the speed in which we were able not only to develop a vaccine, but develop a vaccine through an entirely different mechanism, that was this real great example of how you have to build up that inventory of tremendously promising tech. And when there's enough focus, you can accelerate that very quickly. And I think that's kind of what we're trying to do here, is look at the full menu of possible tech out there and apply that accelerant, that catalyst, to get some things out the door a little quicker than they might organically come out. And I think that, we can talk about batteries, we can talk about carbon capture, but as you guys were talking about your various examples, some of them are harder than others to connect to climate change. I don't know that immediately people appreciate that a 5 or 6% increase in efficiency has a pretty sizable, at scale, has a sizable impact on climate. Having a tire that goes an extra 10,000 miles, meaning that we make fewer tires, makes a sizable impact. And I think that was a major take home for me during the meeting.
Well, to your point about tires too, that affects the battery range. I mean, especially one thing I've learned about electric cars, because I did some market work last year and rented a Tesla for 3 months. The tire quality matters a lot in range, even more so than combustion vehicles. So if you have faster wear on your tire, or you have any issue, because I had a flat tire and I had to replace the tire on the side of the road. And once you had a little bit of asymmetry in the tires, battery range just dropped tremendously. So it's some little things and that's the hard part of communication, Brandon, like you talk about. It's like how to get people to appreciate the significance of little things like that.
One thing that I thought was really interesting. So in panel one, I think that Sally Benson mentioned refrigerants as part of her comments. I just want to amplify that, because refrigerants are ubiquitous in the world right now, inside of air conditioners, inside of refrigerator units, and almost all of them are greenhouse gas emitters at some point in their life, end of life especially. And one of the most effective things we can do to reduce greenhouse gas emissions is just to not let that escape. One of the ways that nanotechnology plays into this is that there are really interesting sort of non-gas, solid-state ways that refrigerants could be replaced. And I think that doesn't even have to be very far into the future. I want to highlight this because I don't think it's something that comes up a lot. People think of solar panels, people think of wind, but refrigerants are one of the single biggest problems over the next 30 years. And there are protocols for using less dangerous refrigerants in new installations, but they wouldn't necessarily be as good as a solid state solution. And I think that's a real opportunity for nanoscience. Batteries specifically came up as one of the big takeaways from the conference. And I agree that energy storage is one of the big takeaways from the conference. And I think batteries are one of the near-term most promising solutions. But I think that lithium ion chemistry is the best we have right now. It's really great in cars at this moment and other mobile applications, but it's not obvious that that's the best for stationary storage, which is probably an even bigger need. I think new chemistries, which is a nanotechnology issue, is a huge deal for batteries specifically, But in a broader energy storage sense, I think that new thinking is actually needed because batteries are only one solution. I'll provide a concrete example. Hydrogen storage could be great in mobile applications. Hydrogen plus a fuel cell can give you really great performance properties. Brandon, you were talking about people who want to outperform their Ferraris. Well, if you really want to outperform your Tesla, you need a hydrogen car. I think that nanotechnology specifically has a role to play here because it seems that hydrogen storage is one of the major obstacles to this being more widespread. And a nanotechnology for metal hydride storage of hydrogen is a really practical, realistic solution. And it depends, based on our current knowledge, on nanotechnology. So I think that's another area that is really exciting.
And I think my takeaway is going to echo a lot of what Mariel said. We talk about a lot of the new technologies that are going to make the new applications that are going to really affect the climate, the new energy technologies. I have a whole list of them in my notes that I could just go on and on about. One of the things that really struck me is the fundamental material issues that we are going to be dealing with to make those applications a reality are all based in nanotechnology. They're going to advance with advances in nanotechnology. So materials is a nano's game. And I think that some of the technologies might have a ways yet to go, but I'm, going to be optimistic as my normal personality prescribes and kind of expect them to really make a difference in the climate in the coming years.
I would just echo what everyone said there. I think there's a lot of reason to be optimistic. I think we are facing some significant challenges. I don't want to sugarcoat it, but I think that there are so many solutions out there and so many dedicated people and organizations that are using their tremendous skills and resources to address this. I think there's a lot of reason to engage and to be hopeful. And I think that this is the first step of many where we are going to take a group of people who have solutions that we can apply to this global crisis. So I want to thank our panel. Thank you for your participation in the workshop, and thank you for this really interesting conversation. I was brought back to the workshop and all of the energy that I got from that, and it really inspires me to keep pushing forward. So thank you for all that you do, and thank you for your time today.